trees are immortal. They are undying beings. They are organisms that can live indefinitely. Age limit and dying of old age, those aren't really things. Especially in the case of trees, we can observe this through the practice of bonsai, which is same as any other kind of tree, except it's nanonized to be miniature. Trees, they grow to fit their environment. So if you're cultivating a bonsai tree, it's just made miniature, it's made smaller, but it is still a fully living tree. And these can live for hundreds, and there are some that have even lived and are still alive from over 1,000 years ago. It's a very old practice. There's no time restraint to these trees. Also observed trees just in nature living for thousands of years. So there's no real age limit. And even lifespans are simply the average of adolescence to maturity and how long it typically lives for until it gets killed by something. But there's no genetic or biological clock or time limit. And in fact, this applies to most organisms, whether plant or animal, even humans. We don't have genetic age or time constraints. You die when you are ultimately killed by something. So to clarify, there's a difference between aging. You grow and develop and go through the process of individuation, but you don't age into death. There's just not a cellular clock that suddenly says you can live up to 80, 90, 100 years and then your body fails. That's not what happens. What is actually happening is you or any tree or plant or animal is killed by something, usually another organism. We're just talking about the idea of dying of old age. Again, you can be killed or crushed or starve or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. The effects of aging, of old age, is your body slowly succumbing to other organisms. And the foremost of these organisms that are slowly eating away at your body are fungus, different kinds of funguses. Bacteria and parasites are factors as well, but they are far less prolific than fungus. And fungus comes in all different sorts of shapes and sizes and structures, and there's about 100,000 classified species of fungus, but scientists predict there's anywhere between 1.5 to 5 million species of fungus, which means, depending on the ranges, we have 5 or less than 5% of all fungus even classified. But we know and acknowledge that fungal spores are in the air, in and on our bodies at all times. So your ability to live long, longevity itself is determined by how well you can fight off and defend, how long your immune system can protect you from fungus until you slowly or ultimately die. And again, this is true for plants and animals, for trees and humans. This is something that, I don't know, science is just behind on or refuses to acknowledge, or maybe it's just more profitable for medical industries to kind of suppress or ignore this information, which is that sickness is synonymous with decomposition. The only difference between disease and sickness and illness and decomposition is that the host organism, yourself, is still alive and carrying out its bodily processes. What's happening when you're sick is that there is a fungal infestation in your body that is slowly eating away at you. If you are able to survive and recover, then you've stopped that process of decomposition. The sort of biological imperative of fungus is that they are just eating and reproducing whatever they get in contact to, provided the environment is suitable to them, which is mainly acidic, damp, and dark environments. And so death, and especially the death we associate with natural old age, is really your body breaking down by fungus until ultimately you have major organ failure that then kills you. And that's how death and aging, that is what it is in reality. Dead bodies, we'll talk about, they don't just wither slowly through time. There's nothing that just causes the fading and breaking down of your body, your flesh, and your bones and your organs when you die. They have to actively be decomposed by organisms. Now, this is obviously easy to understand because there's methods of preserving dead bodies and completely stopping the rate of decomposition, because those environmental factors of fungus still need to be met. So any sort of illness and sickness, everything from the common cold to acne to cancer, these are all fungal attacks on the body or in the body. And in the case of cancer, what's interesting is that the old word for cancer is canker. And this was from a Greek term that was used to describe crabs. That's why the constellation Cancer is a crab, because a crab is called a cancer. That word canker became cancer as we know it for the disease, the tumor. The reason why it had the same name as a crab is because the chitin of cancer cells, or how it looks when you have a cancer, is the same as the chitin of a crab, or it was described as in the same way. And the reason why cancers are made of chitin is because fungus, actually, the membranes of fungal cells are chitin. And this is quite interesting because fungus, being its own kingdom of life, actually kind of fits in between animal and plant cells when you're looking at them under a microscope. They are very similar to both types of cells. They're kind of like the bridge between animal and plant cells. The structure is almost the same as an animal cell, but they have a harder, closer to a plant cell wall in the form of chitin. But actually what happened was, about 1 billion years ago, animals and plants broke off the evolutionary tree from fungus, and that's why they're so similar. It's actually, animals and plant cells are similar to fungal cells instead of the other way around. Fungus evolved first. And fungus are heterotrophs, which means they have to feed on material, sometimes organic, sometimes it's not organic. So when we're looking at plants that are dying, they're dying because they have an infection, they are sick, and this is all because of fungus. You can see in plant rust, in plant tumors, in rot and mold and decay. All these different kinds of funguses are attacking those plants. It's the same thing with humans. And there are a number of anomalies, medical anomalies, of both in humans and trees, where the body grows different and bizarre formations of flesh or appendages that are seen as genetic mutations, but what it is these fungus cells, which are very, very similar to human cells, are growing almost symbiotically with the body. It's always apparent because humans can't grow chitin, and neither can trees. But when you observe these diseases up close, or even just noticing the texture of them from a distance, that they're growing chitin. And I'm going to put, I have this space here, I'm going to put images and stuff so you can see what I mean. And all of this is verifiable, and you can reference it and everything. But the big suppression of knowledge is that this is not the conclusion of where everything related to sickness, death, and dying is that decomposition process affecting you. This should wildly be changing how we practice medicine and how we look at things like cancer and all of these bizarre cases. Mycology is a relatively new field, and it's vastly understudied and has not begun to reveal its implications in medicine and health and just the natural biology of the world, which is that fungus is in and around everything at all times, in most environments, and that it's kind of a arms race between the immune system and the fungal spores that are trying to consume and reproduce. And that's so all sickness and death stems from fungus. And to give some advice or to teach more about the biology of fungus, fungus dies in direct sunlight. They don't live in alkaline environments either. So that's why it's very important to keep your body at a normal pH of 7. That's what our body needs for homeostasis, is a pH of 7. And this is also why nighttime and rainy weather causes a exacerbation of any sort of chronic illness, or if you're actually sick with something, you feel it worse and worse when it's nighttime and when it's rainy, especially if it's humid. It's because the spores this is when they grow. This is the growth period of fungus, is at night and in rain, or just out of direct sunlight. You have to be able to produce acid and sugar from your diet, as well as being exposed to sunlight. There's no such thing as dying of old age. Whether it's in trees or humans, you have to be consumed and eaten by an organism to die of these so-called natural causes. It's over the course of lifetime, or you're just exposed to something randomly and it breaks your body down until you die, and then the decomposition process continues. It doesn't begin when you die. It is a lifelong effect of funguses eating your body. That is the broad biological structure of our nature, of nature. It's a good way to form that understanding, is look at how trees die and understand that it's fungus, it's rot, it's mold. You can observe that same thing happening in humans and ourselves, and that it all relates to fungus. Vastly understudied field. I think that's where I'll end the video, and yeah, hopefully if this interests you, you check out some of my other content, because it's mostly all related to fungus and stuff like that. Thanks for watching. Peace out.